games you need to win on the road or games against the division, regardless of when it is. But later would be better because they wouldn't have time to turn the calls around and get everybody lined up against us. Now at week 7, they've got 10 weeks to figure out how to make it all work. So
Yeah, but normally, like I said, normally don't you get one official, one crew, one time? Now, granted, they do double up at times, and that would be the big FU to the Raiders if we drew Hussey and his crew later on.
it's
But if
possible.
it's
Yeah.
normally a one official, one crew per year shot, then we got rid of the booger, and that was a kind of a play on words. We
Yeah.
got rid of one of the boogers early, and we have to wait for the other booger later on.
Yeah, no, I see your point, and that's true. You should only get them once, but then again, if there's a playoff, all bets are off on that part. I got
Absolutely.
actually 6:01. Let's roll this thing, then we'll come back and we'll hit a couple of those points.
It's game day, baby! Let's go!
Bring on the Texans. Welcome, everyone, to NFL Nation Live. This is our Week 7 show. I am Ref Guru, along with the Hall of Famer Wayne Violator Mabry, and, of course, the legendary Pirate, Captain Jack. We'll get the chat open in just a minute. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We've been chatting a little bit about the officiating crew that we're going to get this week in Las Vegas against the Houston Texans. We'll get more into that. And it's important because, things on this show, officiating matters, points matter. We'll get to all that. But before everything starts to break out, gets crazy, we open up the chat and all hell breaks loose. Welcome to the show, my friend. What are your quick first thoughts?
I've got two, actually. First of all, I'd like to send my condolences to the family of Charlie Trippi. He was the oldest Hall of Fame member at 100, just passed away. So I'd like to send condolences for our show out to his family and friends.
Yeah,
and secondly, with this trade deadline coming up November 1st, I'm on Trade Watch to see what players change teams.
I think that's a good watch to be on. And I'm all with you on the Charlie Trippi part. I actually had a Cardinals helmet with the Hall of Famers. Of course, Trippi is one of those that I gave to my dad years ago. But okay, I'm ready. I know Cap's ready. I guess the usual question should be Violator, are you game day ready?
I'm game day ready. Thumbs and fingers taped up. Let's go.
Set!
We are indeed taped up and ready to hit something. This is NFL Nation Live, Ref Guru for Week 7 show, along with Violator, Wayne Mabry, the Hall of Famer, and the soon-to-be Hall of Famer, super fan extraordinaire, and legendary Pirate, Captain Jack. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. We are going to put the wraps on Week 6. Raiders had a bye. There was still news, though, to be had, and we're going to get you ready for Week 7. We're also going to probably give away a t-shirt as soon as I figure out what the trivia question of the week is going to be. And if you're out there, we also sent you a little something. It'll take a while to get there, but we appreciate your participation last week. Hollywood Raider should have received his book from last week. So if you should have won something and you didn't get it yet, you need to let us know because we're on it. Other than that, let me open up the chat. Keep it coming. Keep it real. Just want a solid 4 quarters. Yeah, that'd give everybody $1. How do I turn the chat on? There we go. Man, you'd think it was preseason for me. All right. Here's the scoop, guys. Washington went into Chicago, somehow beat the Bears. Nobody cares. It's a Thursday night game. I, quite frankly, didn't really watch most of it. Although my mom did ping me for quarter score, so I had to Google about every 35 minutes to let her know what was going on. But I think really the takeaway from that is that I don't know. I think the Bears should be on the clock. What do you guys think?
I have no problem with that at this point. I don't see much of a change in their scheme. They've got a great young quarterback, but not a lot around him.
Yeah, there's just not a lot going on in Chicago. You know, they are 30th out of 32 teams. Um, and I don't know, but it wasn't a fun game. The Thursday game's getting a little weird, quite frankly. Maybe later on in the season when it maybe matters more, so to speak, we'll get some better matchups. But it is what it is. The New England went into Cleveland to take on the Browns. Coach B had a pretty good game. There's a couple things out of this one. Was that we said last week he wasn't going to get beat by the Browns, and he didn't. Why? Because not the actual Browns, not these Browns, the other Browns, the old Baltimore Ravens, Cleveland Browns fired him. But I think the other issue here, the dynamic is now set up. We'll get to because I want to ask Coach B here in just a second. V, I think what's going on is that um, Coach B tied George Hallis for most wins with the single team or just most wins in general. But they've got the Bears this week where he could actually break the record of George Hallis. So it's pretty interesting week in week 6 for Coach B and the Patriots who got the win, and coming up in week 7 for Coach B and maybe the Patriots in specific. But Coach B, what was your thoughts with regards to that pretty big, important win in Cleveland?
It's a pleasure to share your name with Papa Bear. And for those that don't know who the hell Papa Bear is, it's not that guy Yogi Bear. You need to learn about your damn NFL history. Papa Bear Hallis of the Chicago Staleys. See, there's a trivia question for people who understand the Bears early.
Yeah, right.
But Papa Bear, and my deepest respect for him, you got people like Papa Bear, Curly Lambeau, Jim Thorpe, the people that brought football, the National Football League together, and just to be honored to be of the same realm as Papa Bear. And I knew that those, I won't even call them what the name is because we're trying to keep this show on the PG-13 level. If any, because that damn Captain Jack keeps swearing all the damn time.
Yeah. He gets a little sideways, Coach. But we know you're a historian. We know that you respect the game from that standpoint. And you're 20 or so wins away from actually Don Shula, so you'll have to coach a little bit longer to take over the head spot. But that's probably inevitable at this point. But how is it, that everything lined up for you to actually exceed George House's record when you're going to play the Bears at home at the Razor?
Well, of course, the NFL made sure that the schedule coincided with all these wins. If you don't think the NFL is rigged, you haven't been paying attention. They knew we would have X amount of wins at this point. We knew that we would be playing the Bears at that point, and to win against the Bears is just predetermined. Now, anything after that, I think that I'm giving that as a wedding present for my my owner, who recently got married and didn't tell anybody. The guy wore tennis shoes.
He does rub people the wrong way like that.
Yeah, well, he don't get into that rubbing thing with Robert Kraft. That's a different conversation altogether.
My bad.
Okay?
Sorry.
We're not going to go there. Okay, we're going to keep this show clean.
Copy that. All right.
Yeah,
well,
we're going to win.
Well, congratulations on your win in Cleveland, and looking forward to your win at the Razor on Sunday against the Bears. The Jets went into Green Bay, beat the Packers. I don't know what's going on here. We put the Jets on the clock. We may have to eat that one, but let's give it a couple more weeks to see if the Jets actually settle down. Rodgers called out some of the Packer players that they need to tighten it up a little bit. I think they'll get the win this week, even though the game is in Washington against the Commanders. But this is a Packers team that with the Vikings playing the way that they're playing, they better get this thing kicked in a hurry, right? Or it's clearly going to be a dumpster fire if they lose a couple more.
Definitely a couple of more, because the Minnesota is trying to rear their heads up, and I think they seriously believe they can win that NFC North. And speaking of the Jets, like you say, we had them on the clock. But like I said to you earlier, we might need to pull that battery out of that clock and just freeze it. These guys are believing in John Salah's whole scheme. They've taken on his mentality, and they're bumping some people around and scoring points too.
Yeah, they are. I think the Packers will win by accident this week, but so that'll be a win. But they're going to have to get serious with the way the Vikings are playing, and because they went down to Miami and beat the Dolphins. But Jacksonville, Indianapolis, that was an interesting game. We really thought, I think, Jacksonville would start to get things corrected a little bit after a couple losses, but they went and got beat by the Colts. Now the Colts are going to go and play a game against the Titans, and this is a Colts team that we thought might be teetering on having a little bit of a problem, and now they're fighting their way into this AFC South picture. We'll get a little bit more into Indianapolis and Tennessee, but what surprised you more? I mean, I know Indianapolis is playing at home, guys, but what surprised you more? Jacksonville's inability to beat the Colts team, which I think they should have been able to do, or the Colts just actually finding something to actually pull it together and get a division win at home. Pretty big win for the Colts.
I was going to say that the Colts have lucked out the week prior. They beat the Broncos. Actually, the Broncos pretty much beat themselves in that one. So that's a win for the Colts that they probably shouldn't have had. I think that the Jaguars did everything in their power to lose the game at the very end for the Colts and give them a win. I mean, yeah, the Colt, you are what the record says you are, but I'm still not really giving the Colts their due yet. They need to have a statement victory, and I have yet to see that in this season. They need to pull out all the stops.
Yeah.
And they need to have Ryan. And by the way, they won on Ryan's arm because I think he threw it was his most career pass attempts ever. They didn't have a running game, and until the Colts get a running game, they're not going to be able to afford to have Ryan be their entire offense.
That's right. No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, they got to get Taylor healthy back, and then it's a formidable Colts team. I don't think they play deep into January, but this is a team that nobody's going to want to play if they start getting things together, right? And they could be a dangerous playoff team if they make it that. So it'll be interesting to watch this Colts team. We talked about Minnesota going into Miami to beat the Dolphins. Not really much to talk about there except Kirk Cousins wearing a bunch of lettuce or celery or whatever that was around his neck. I don't know what's going on there, but doesn't really matter.
You like that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Cincinnati went into New Orleans, and I don't know if Cincinnati is really that good or the Saints just suck, but the Saints really dropped the chance here to win a game at home. I know it's an interconference game, but now the Bengals have all of a sudden thrown the AFC North into a tizzy with Baltimore's loss against the New York Giants. So what do you take away from the Bengals win against New Orleans? Bengals better than we think. Saints as crappy as we think they are. I mean, guys, they lost at home. They had a lead, they lost it. Not a good look for the Sean Payton-less Saints.
Well, I think they're having their issues with injuries. I think Andy Dalton is their starter right now with a little bit of Mr. Hill coming in there to spare him, but they both are underachieving on the offense and defensive sides of the ball from a year ago. And it's kind of strange, but I just chalked it up to parity.
Yeah. Well, that's probably true, but it seems something. I mean, obviously with Sean Payton and Drew Brees gone, we knew the Saints were not going to be as good. And I know they have some quarterback problems as well. But Cap or V, I don't know where to really put this. I mean, Dennis Allen, I'm not a huge fan of his from that standpoint, but do you think this is a coaching problem or just not enough good players in the right spots at this point for the Saints?
I think that that when the Saints win, they actually probably surprise themselves.
Yeah.
So they win in spite of themselves. And like I said, if you said that Andy Dalton is their quarterback, dude, I thought that he was already on the FBI's most wanted list because he's been missing for a while.
No,
What was it? What was it?
no.
Was it the Dallas he last played for?
He was, yeah, he was on a couple milk cartons, but yeah, no, he showed up down there. But V's got a good point, and so do you, Cap. The Saints are what they are. The thing about it is the the Saints really should be one of the better teams in the NFC South, and yet because we know the Panthers are awful, but all of a sudden, the Bucks are kind of, I'd say 50, maybe 51-49, but it's the Atlanta Falcons that are sneaking up on people right now. So I would have thought early in the season that the Saints probably would have had an inside track here, but they just don't seem to be able to get it going. And Sean Payton, better offensive mind. I agree with you on that front. Winston needs to get his arm right or left or something. I've never been a Winston fan, which I think is unfortunate for the Saints because I think they could be better with better quarterback. Andy Dalton's obviously just a Band-Aid, right, B, from that standpoint?
Definitely so.
Yeah. Ed says Cincinnati is going to be a surprise to a lot of folks. That's probably true. I think we're kind of waiting for the surprise, but maybe we already got it. I think that we're going to find out a lot about Cincinnati this week in their game at home against Atlanta, because I think Atlanta probably matches up pretty well with them, so to speak. It'll be a challenge for them. I think the Bengals should be glad this game is not in Atlanta. Baltimore went into New York, got beat by the Giants. What's going on with Ravens? I mean, I know where everybody's all liquored up on the Giants. I think it's just what it is. And because they're 5-1 or whatever they are, we're not going to put them on the clock yet. But this is a Giants team that's 17th in the league in scoring. That's not going to get you a lot in January, especially with the way the Eagles are playing and maybe someday the Cowboys. But I think the bigger surprise to me was Baltimore losing a very winnable game on the road. What's going on with the Ravens, y'all?
Well, the Ravens, the good team that they are, they're missing a solid running game. And what happens, they're trying to make Lamar, even though he's a dual threat quarterback, to me, they seem to be using him too much. And you remember last year he went down with an ankle injury on one of those tackles. So they're kind of playing Russian roulette right now. And they're having some problems in the defensive secondary at the same time.
Good point. And there's another good point in the chat. Kev says Ravens need a deep threat. That's very true. Did they not just sign Deshaun
Jackson?
Yes. I'm not sure that fixes that. But back to your point, V, you're going to be watching the trade wire, if you will, for the trade deadline coming up. Do you who's out there that somebody wants, so to speak, or that somebody's looking for? Was there something that was on your mind, or you're just something that you're going to keep an eye on for the next couple of weeks?
Well, the reason I'm watching it mainly is the talk about Abrams and Farrell being trade bait, so to speak.
What?
Yeah.
Not Abram. Why?
Yes.
Well, I mean, remember they were shopping him before the season. They weren't sure whether he was going to fit into the system. Now, honestly, and I'm not blowing smoke up any of their butts, but Abram and Farrell have played adequately to above average in Graham's defense. I think what they're looking for is that's fine playing adequately, but I think that they are trying, they being Dave Ziegler, and this is only in my mind, that they're looking to get compensation for a player that will play from here on out in their system that is definitively built for the system, and or a draft pick for these players before they go out the door and they get nothing for them. I think that's what's in Ziegler's mind is you got somebody who's playing adequately, but what do you want? Do you want somebody that's playing even adequately or a pick if you're only going to be adequate? And again, Cleve Farrell hasn't played horribly. Abrams actually played well when he's been in there.
Right.
They're looking for compensation.
And system players too, Cap. They want guys that fit their scheme. And I guess these guys are some throwbacks from the Gruden Mayock era.
Right.
And I see him cleaning house pretty much.
Oh, yeah.
Well, maybe so, but I'll tell you what, Abram is going to go somewhere else and be player of the year.
Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely.
Well,
So that
it's all a matter of a system fit. Remember, Nande Asamoah was a Pro Bowler with us. He goes over to the Eagles. He couldn't get arrested, or he should have been arrested for playing in
yeah.
a zone defense.
Here's
Abram in the right system will play well, and Farrell in the right system will play better. And that's
well,
where it is. Player to the system fit.
well, I agree with what you're saying, but I agree with what you're saying. And a comment in there might be cheaper to keep Farrell than overpaying for free agent, maybe. Um, OBJ talking with KC, fine by me. He and Djax are both too old to play. Yeah. But and I agree with what you just said, Cap, and with what you just said, V, about system players. But here's the problem that I have with that is because when I played for coaches that had a system, I sucked in that system. When I played for coaches that let me be me and do what I needed to do, John Madden style. I know this is a football show, but Bobby Knight basketball style, I couldn't get out of the end zone. So I'm just not um, I'm just not a system oriented guy. Now I know that there's certain aspects of quote a system that you have to have. I'd call it more of a philosophy than a system at that point
Right.
because you started getting into a system that's more structured, more robotic, more blah blah blah. It doesn't mean guys can't be guys, but look who they rotated in and out in for 20 years, right? So I think I'm more philosophy oriented when it comes to that, and then I got to find Ted Hendricks and all these guys who just fly around to the ball and do that. And I think Abram is that guy. And I just if they're going to run a system in Las Vegas, which I think is fundamentally wrong, but you're right. If that's what they're going to do, then he's going to be out. The problem is he's going to go to somebody who doesn't run a system and lets him be him, and then he's going to be a Hall of Famer. And
Absolutely.
it's going to be the Khalil Mack thing all over again. Come back, and then you're going to kick our butt with some sort of BS. But that's just, I know I'm on a rant here, but that's just
Yeah. But hey,
Jacobs,
it's
Cleveland, Abrams. They don't pick up their 5th-year options. Yeah, well, look what Matt's putting in the chat there.
that,
Um,
that's good
and it
stuff.
may, but to your guys' points, and if I'm reading into too much of this, let me know. But I think to your guys' points is that if we have player collateral, then the Raiders are willing to deal that collateral for volume, if you will, picks or you know second tier guys or whatever that they can just bunch up a whole bunch of people and try to make it work, so to speak.
Kind of what you call utility players. That's what they're
Yeah,
really looking for.
but I don't know. I think that it's just how they want to run things. If that's how they want to run things, so be it. But and I understand that you can't keep Jacobs for too much longer. If you're not going to keep him, keep him. If you're going
Right.
to keep him, then you need to keep him. But if you're not going to keep him, then you need to move on him while he still has value. And same with everybody else in the Estonia. But if they're going to do that, then where does Derek Carr fit in the situation? What about Waller? What about Adams? What about the? I mean, you're going to throw the whole team out there because you want um, you know, players to fill a spot. I don't know. Obviously with the Patriots, they had their franchise quarterback, if you will,
Right.
so they didn't move on that. So, but they may not think Derek Carr is that. Then, if that's the case, does he fall into that same group? I mean, when you look at Houston, what if Houston got Carr and Abram and Jacobs and Farrell and whoever else we're throwing out there in the chat?
Lovey would love that.
You think with that coach and that coaching staff of the AFC South would get flipped on its lid?
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Anyway, all right, enough of that stuff. But anyway, Baltimore I think needs to turn things around. They're going to hand the division to the Cincinnati Bengals. In the same way that Tampa Bay will and New Orleans will hand it to Atlanta if they don't pick it up. Speaking of Tampa Bay, the faux Pirates when in Pittsburgh got beat by the Steelers. Nobody was happier about that than Jack and maybe me, maybe V. But that was a fun one. I picked Pittsburgh. I don't remember if you guys did or not, but in that case, it was pretty good. One more stupid comment. Okay, never mind. Carolina got beat by the Rams. No surprise there. I
Yeah.
was a little surprised Arizona got beat by the Sea Chickens, if I could borrow Cool Kev's phrase for the seabirds that fly around. Puget Sound. Arizona better get their act together too, because I mean I know the division is a little bit of a crapshoot right now. But if it's a big if, San Francisco beats Kansas City this week, and they might.
Yep.
That could and Arizona can't get it done on Thursday against the Saints, although I think they will. I think that division's going to start to see some separation a little bit because I think Seattle's literally really the wild card at this point. I mean, this is a Seattle team that is number 7 in scoring. I mean,
Right.
yeah, I know, right? They can't play any defense, which means they're not going to go deep into January, but they're scoring a lot of damn points. Um, yeah, Kev's like anytime, ref. Yeah. Buffalo went into Kansas City, beat the Chiefs. Thank God for that. I listened to Wild Wild West show. I listened to NFL Network, blah, blah, blah. A lot of people were like, oh, yeah, it was the Chiefs fans. It wasn't as bad as we thought. And, blah, blah. You got beat. You got beat, and we said on this show you were going to get beat. The Bills are pissed off. The Bills are angry. I'm not surprised they beat the Chiefs. It's a loss. The Raiders would have had a great week had we played and won, but even with the bye week, it would have even been better if we could have gotten a tie or a Denver win. It is what it is. We'll take whatever we get. But a loss for the Chiefs against the Bills is good because if the karma fairies show up, that game goes to Buffalo in January, and that's going to not end well for the Kansas City Chiefs, who have the rat for a mascot. As a NorCal guy, I hope KC beats the one. Yeah, well, Jack, I'm glad you're in there and mentioned that. Speaking of which, I'm working very hard that on next week's show, we might have some special guests from the Northern Cal Alumni Association that are 49ers fans. So I'm trying to set that up. So stay tuned for that. Maybe we'll have some guests next week.
Stay tuned, baby.
Yeah, the Bills kicker is stupid. Well, he might be, but I don't know.
I'm not getting that comment. What's that about?
I don't know. I don't know that he's any dumber than the guy that was wide right for the Chiefs, and that's an inside joke because the kicker's name for the Chiefs is Wright. Am I correct?
Exactly.
WRIGHT.
WRIGHT.
So when he's wide right, that's actually what Raiders exposed the Chef's rookie D-backs. Bills the same thing. You're absolutely right, Kevin. That's one of the points that I wanted to see. I wanted to hear on the Wild Wild West show, but I didn't hear it before I had left. So maybe Cap, you heard it, but that's exactly true. Dallas went into Philadelphia, got beat by the Eagles. No real surprise there. The Dak Prescott-less Cowboys got beat by what may be the division champ. So Dallas, they have some wins. They're going to have to keep it going. And they got to start this week at home against Detroit, who's coming off a bye. I don't know what we're going to do with that game. But anyway, Denver went into L.A. To play the Chargers in what couldn't be a bigger snoozer than the one that we had on Thursday, which was Washington and Chicago. They were talking about it being sudden death, and I was like, it can't come soon enough. But the Chargers got the win. Las Vegas, Tennessee, Houston, and Detroit had a bye. Those teams are home and away, so to speak, this week. Detroit on the road, Tennessee at home, Las Vegas at home, Houston on the road. So we'll see how that plays out. But we're going to take a commercial break. But here's a trivia question for you all. Somebody's going to win a T-shirt tonight. Ref, why you guys always got to make calls against us? Well,
that guy. Now, wait a second, Alfredo. Okay, I can honestly say that unbiased, the gentleman that is to my wherever I'm pointing at. Okay, unbiased referee. If he made a call against the Raiders, it was probably the correct call. Unlike a couple of his cronies that wear that crap, that have makeup calls and phantom calls and BS calls amongst that. No, I don't get paid for that comment there, brother. I just wanted to let you know it's not him. It's the other zebras that we're talking about, shipmate.
Yeah, and we're going to be talking about them coming up after the break. Tonight's trivia question, so that you all can Google out of it while we're at a commercial break. When the NFL and the AFL merged, once the agreement was actually made in 1966 and then actually took effect in 1970, 3 teams from the NFL had to come over to what would be the AFC after the merger. What 3 teams had to leave the NFL to come over to the AFC in order to balance out the conferences and put into place the new merger between the NFL and AFL? We'll keep track of your comments and be back after the break. I'm just responding to one of the comments in there. It says if he's not the one that came out with the tuck rule, he's good then. Yeah. So let's go on the record. Brady fumbled, and I have not wavered from that stance since the actual day that happened. But
By the way, Ref, I put my answer in private chat. I'm just seeing if I was actually correct.
hold on. Give me a second. Let's see. No. You have 2 of the 3.
Okay. Okay. Well, I know for a fact that those 3 teams were in the NFL and they all went to the AFC.
Yeah. So Matthew may have it right. He says Baltimore, Cleveland. Um, uh, Matthew says Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and Baltimore. That's true. Tito's in there too with Baltimore, Cleveland, although he misspelled Steelers, but I understand why he did that. So I'll leave it to UV as to whether it's Baltimore Colts, Cleveland Browns, Pittsburgh Steelers agreed to join the. So CRF 16 is also in there. They're all pretty close in terms of the time. So let's get these down. V, we've got
3 shirts.
Yeah. So we've got Matthew, who's I think a previous winner on some stuff. Tito,
Yeah.
and we got CRF 16.
That's 3.
Oh, shoot! Now I know. Now I know why I was incorrect, because the team that was there was already in the AFL. Yeah.
Yeah, the Bengals. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Bengals.
Okay.
Big boy Mario's in there along with Cool Kev, but you guys are just a little bit late. GA Patriot, what's the question? I tell you what, we've got some winners for this week. Don't worry, you guys are all in there. We'll get you taken care of. We've got a lot of football to be played, but I think we've got 3 winners. So here's how it works. The winners were Matthew, Tito, and
CRF 16.
Yeah, okay.
That's
So
Ruben.
those
That's
okay,
Ruben.
so GA Patriot, Cool Cab, don't worry, we'll get you guys taken care of on another show. But thanks for your participation. But the 3 winners, I need your name and shipping information, and I want you to email that to me at NFLNationLive at gmail.com. And also include your shirt size, name, address, shipping address, shirt size, and email that to NFLNationLive at gmail.com. Ed says Matt called it too. I think we got him.
Yeah.
So Matt, Tito, and sorry, I can't remember who the other one was.
Ruben, you said it was Cap?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Ruben is CRF.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Tito
So
okay.
So you guys send us your name, shipping information to NFLNationLive at gmail.com. I'll forward that to Wayne, and he'll get your T-shirts out. Thank you for participating. Don't worry, we're going to give away more stuff. This is only week 7. So we got plenty of inventory to get you guys taken care of. But thanks for participating, because we're not trying to buy you off so that you come to our show, but we do want you to know that we appreciate you being here. We just also want to make it fun for you and have a reason for you to participate. And that's why we appreciate your chats, because you guys are football knowledgeable, and we may not cover everything that you think is important. So Let's move on to week 7. Thursday, the Saints are going to go into Arizona and play what we hope is a bunch of angry birds. But so far, Arizona's pretty much just crapped all over the place. But I think they're going to get a win against the Saints, who can't seem to find too much of a direction with where they're going, especially if Andy Dalton really is going to be the quarterback. D-Hop is back, a couple of other people. I think Arizona's probably going to be able to light it up and take care of the Saints. What do you guys think?
I'm taking the Angry Birds only because D Hop's coming back, and on the Saints side, they've got Marshawn Lattimore, who might not be healthy enough to play.
Mm,
Uh,
that's a bummer for the Saints.
Jameis is still nursing his injury. He might not be ready. That's why Andy Dalton's name came up as
Right.
starting again. So
Yeah.
I'm taking Arizona in a close one, maybe.
All right. Yeah,
I'll,
I just think
yeah.
Arizona's going to have too much. Cap.
I take Arizona, and I'm going to say this is purely homeristic. I hope that the Saints don't figure things out until after Halloween.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't think they will. Arizona can't beat anybody but the Raiders. You might be true on that front, but I think they'll probably beat the Saints. Um, yeah, I'm just saying. But you're probably right. The new Cleveland Browns are going to go into Baltimore and play the old Cleveland Browns. Division game. The Browns are what they are. I don't know what's going on with Baltimore. I'd like to like Baltimore at home, but I liked Baltimore on the road last week against the Giants. Pretty much a crapshoot. Who's the official for that game? Hang on just a second. Sean Smith. It doesn't really turn anything around from that standpoint. I'm going to take the Ravens at home. Um, I don't know. Let's take a look at scoring real quick. This is a division game. Baltimore's number 5, Baltimore's number 4, Cleveland's number 5. So on paper, this game's a pretty even matchup. I don't know if weather will be a factor, but I think the Ravens are going to get their crab cakes delivered to the locker room. I think the Browns are going to go home with a not only another loss, but another division loss, which actually would really help the Bengals at this point. Um, but how do you guys see this one playing out for either the Ravens or the Browns?
I got the Ravens at home. I just watched Jackson's face in that loss last week. Wasn't a happy camper because he put it on his shoulders. I say he comes out and rebounds and just, I don't say eat the Browns up because I say it's going to be a close game because they're so familiar with each other, but I'm taking
Yeah.
Baltimore home field advantage.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll-
So
Yeah, I agree. I mean, although the Browns got a running game,
they do.
which is actually one of the reasons why they've actually played as well as they have at times.
That's true.
It is in Baltimore, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll take Baltimore in a Whiskey Tango Fox game to
Yeah,
hopefully
yeah.
get themselves figure out, like a self slap in
Yeah.
the face as to what's
Yeah.
going on.
Well, that's a really good point, Cap, on the running game because the Patriots defense is far superior in my mind to what the Ravens are doing right now, and they held Cleveland to 15 points. Yet that defense gave up 38 points. So if the Browns aren't going to play, I'm sorry, if the Baltimore Ravens aren't going to play any defense, then they're going to have to outscore the Browns, obviously, and that may mean scoring pretty much every time or every other time they get the ball. Because Cleveland's going to put up points. Cleveland's not number 5 for no reason.
Right.
So they're going to put up points if that defense doesn't decide they're going to stop them. But the Patriots defense is pretty decent. So you got a Cleveland team that only was able to put up 15 points against a pretty good defense. They could double that this week against the Ravens, which means the Ravens better be plus 30 if they want to beat the Browns. If Baltimore gets the running game going, it will be a shootout. Okay. I didn't know they had a running game, but all right.
I was gonna say I don't even know who is playing running back for the Ravens, or actually I don't even know if they have any deep threats.
I don't think the Ravens know either. This is what bothers me about the Ravens is that they really should be more consistent than they are, but they're just frustratingly not very good. And they're actually more frustrating for me than Dallas. Dallas is actually, I know they lost to the Eagles, but Dallas is at least fairly consistent. The Ravens just are kind of all over the place. You just don't know what's going on with that. Ravens running back is Lamar. Well, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, other than him,
Right.
But yeah,
Yeah.
that's the point. Is that it's got to be more than him if they want to win the division and get a home game. Tampa Bay going to go into Carolina and beat the Panthers by accident. Atlanta going to go into Cincinnati. I don't know. Can the Mariota led Falcons go in and beat the Bengals? I mean, I like the comments earlier that I think it was from Ed that the Bengals are pretty good. I think they showed some moxie last week to go into a fairly tough place. Maybe didn't play a very good team, but they had to come back against the Saints. They took care of New Orleans. They're going to get Atlanta at home now. And with Baltimore playing against Cleveland, Cincinnati has a chance to pick up a little bit in the division if they can get a win against Atlanta, right?
Definitely got Cincinnati at home in front of their crowd. Like I say, the crowd's going to be fired up after that win in NOLA. So even Atlanta is going to give them a tough run for their money, but I see Cincy pulling it out just on
Yeah,
firepower alone.
yeah, I would agree with you on that front. If that's what they do to actually show up, then Atlanta's in trouble. My concern is that the Bengals get off to a slow start. They let the Falcons hang around. This thing could get ugly fast. But you're right. If the Bengals go out there play that game, Atlanta's in trouble. Atlanta is just not scoring enough points. Um, Comment in there, Tito. Hope they don't trade Jacobs to the Ravens. They probably won't. But and another comment in there from Mike, Kenyon Drake plays for the Ravens. So
Yeah, he does.
and then but and I agree with Cap that I think Jacobs probably isn't going anywhere. But if he did, where do you think he would go?
Wouldn't be anywhere in the AFC.
Well, I would agree with you on that front, but it might depend on who has the most currency to give him up or to give up. But if that's the case and he goes to the NFC, where do you think he goes?
NFC. Wow. Run this down.
I think there's some candidates. I actually think the Rams could use him. Think about what he could do. The Rams basically don't have a running game to speak of. And
And
I
the
think
Red,
he could shore up whatever running game they think they have that they would find out they don't have if they had Jacobs. I don't think he goes to Los Angeles, but I think that could be um, an an option. I think the place that he could go and have the most impact right away would actually be Green Bay. Now I know they have Dylan and all that, but if Green Bay were to take him and use him to catch passes out of the backfield, that would totally change all this um, timing crap that Aaron Rodgers is having with all of his new receivers, and it could alter the Packers offense enough for this season to make a difference. Anyway, you can speculate till we all turn purple, but
Yeah, I mean, and that's why people are saying that. Well, why didn't we sign him to a fifth-year option? I think that the reason why Jacobs was not signed to a fifth-year option is not that they didn't think of the world of him, because they do think the world of him. The Raiders and Ziegler and Josh McDaniels wanted to see if he can go through a season without getting nicked.
right.
right.
Well,
CR, yeah, I liked his comment. I just
I
liked his
saw that
comment
too.
regarding
Yeah, that was
the
good.
AFL NFL merger. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It was Al Davis who was signing Roland Gabriel and John Brody, and those guys to contracts for the NFL. Was like, hey, we can't afford this if this is what they're going to do, and they didn't understand that Lamar Hunt had, you know, deep pockets of money. I mean, he could have lost $80 million a year for like 40 years and still not lost all his money. So the NFL, I don't think, realized how much money the AFL had even without their TV contract. Anyway, good comment on the history part of it.
Yeah.
Detroit, a couple of the games I want to talk about. Detroit going to go into Dallas and take on the Cowboys. Detroit's coming off a bye week. This is a Lions team that can score a lot of points. I don't know about their defense, but this is a Dallas team that bothers me because of the points that they're not scoring. They're number 22 overall in scoring. This is a Detroit team that is 12th in scoring, and they had a bye week. So the 12th really isn't indicative of their ability to put up points. So what's going to happen here? I mean, remember, this is a Jared Goff led Lions team that I don't understand how we're still talking about them at this point. If they go into Dallas and beat the Lions, then I think the only team that really cares and needs to pay attention maybe is Minnesota. But
Right.
there's rumor that Dak comes back this
Yep.
week. Whether or not he'll be 100% effective, what's your guys' take on this game, like for Dallas in particular, but maybe whether or not the Lions have?
I'm taking Dallas at home, even with the rumors of that coming back. They, like you say, they won't stick with their running game, and that's where their strength is, along with that stout defense that they've put together somehow. They're running good, man. But Detroit, like I say, with Jared Goff, they could put up points, but their defense is still young and susceptible to biting on double moves, so to speak.
I actually, I might be wrong, and I'll take a shellacking for it next week. Um, I think that this is one of those games that Detroit will win.
Hmm.
You put all those factors together, and actually, damn it, Sharif, you hit my point. Okay, it's one of those games. Detroit always plays the Cowboys rough. It's just
Yeah,
like that's the
that's true.
nemesis,
Yeah.
and they're scoring points. Cowboys are going to come back after that Sunday night groaner, knowing that they gave up a game to the Eagles. I think that might have a little bit on them. And far be it for me to say, Cooper Rush is. I think that they're rushing Dak Prescott in for a reason. I think that he might not even be ready. I'm going to take the Twa on that.
Okay. All right. Um, I'm getting additional history information in the chat.
History.
Most of it I know, but it's still good to hear it because that's one of the things that we respect on the show is the history. So, Tex Sham, the general manager at NFL's Dallas Cowboys, since 1960, secretly contacted AFL owners led by Lamar Hunt, Kansas City, and asked if they were interested in a merger. Um, that is true, and part of that I know isn't just because of the history books read it, but actually knew Tex Shram. Um, Maybe someday we'll be interested in that story. My relationship with Tex Schramm actually started in 1988. Anyway, okay. New York Giants going to go into Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars. I don't know what to do with that game. You got a Giants team that's pretty decent on the road against the Jacksonville team that's desperate for a win. And I think when teams are desperate, I think the Giants are just not going to be paying attention. I actually like Jacksonville to win this. Not that the Giants aren't deserving of being as good as they think they are, but I just think that it's a trap game for the Giants. I'm just not sure they're going to be all there. So I'm going to go out on a limb and take Jacksonville, mostly because they have to have the win. A loss for them is going to be problematic in a division now where they've already lost the number of games that they have. Giants are on a roll. I agree with you, Kev, but and if they keep it going, they're definitely for real. Not that going into Jacksonville is a great win, so to speak, but every win in the NFL
Yeah.
is worthy of something. I remember somebody interviewing one of our officials at camp, and they said, "What game you got this week?" And he says, "Oh, I have Notre Dame, Michigan." And and one of the instructors said, "When you get to the NFL, every Sunday's Notre Dame, Michigan."
That's
So there
true.
are no little games when you get to the NFL, regardless of who you are. Trap game, Jacksonville much better than their record. I agree with that. That's why I'm taking them over the Giants. It's a game the Giants can win, should win, but I don't think they will. Um, and Jacksonville is going to be paying attention to their game and playing well because Indianapolis is going to go into Tennessee to take on the Titans. I'd like the Colts on the road based on the way the Colts played at home, but for all the reasons we already talked about on this show, which is the health and or accuracy and moxie of Matt Ryan and Jonathan Taylor. The Titans are coming off a bye week, which means they're either going to be ready to go or they're going to be rusty. I'm not sure. The problem that here is with the Titans, guys, is that the Titans have only scored 96 points. Now, I know they had a bye week, but I'm not liking this offense. So this is definitely not a Titans team that we're used to from that standpoint. And I don't know if Derrick Henry is still all that. And I don't know if it's because he's still not nothing left in the tank, or because maybe he's just always seems to be nicked up. But I'd like to like the Colts on the road, but I'm concerned about Tennessee getting a win here, and that would help them immensely in a division race. What do you guys take on this one?
Definitely, I've got Tennessee at home, but for defensive reasons. I just think they're going to be able to shut down Indy, who may or may not have Taylor back. I think they're going to attack Matt Ryan to test his fortitude, and like I said, just keep play ball control.
Yeah,
I'll say the same thing I said last week, although I was wrong. I said if Taylor plays, the Colts win. Taylor didn't play, but the Colts still
yeah, they
win.
still,
I,
yeah,
I'm gonna keep it with the same thing. If Taylor plays, the
yeah,
Colts win. If he
yeah.
doesn't play, I'll take Tennessee.
Okay, getting some love there, V, for sending your book out. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I wanted to make sure. And GA Patriot, he told me on the one time I had a chance to talk with him, he got a chance to tell you personally, just in case you missed the comment. He loved it and he thanks you profusely.
Appreciate it, brother. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good book. It's a good book. Green Bay going to go into Washington and beat the Commodores. The Jets going to go into Denver and beat the Broncos. Thank God. Then our game of the week, Houston going to go into Las Vegas, take on the Raiders. You know, this is a game the Raiders are going to win. I don't like the officiating crew. We were talking about a little bit of that in pregame. I don't like the officiating crew. I don't think that next week we'll be talking about calls that specifically hurt us in our ability to get a win, or God forbid, created a loss for us. But I do think there will be some calls, and I think there will be some questionable calls. Remember, officials are not going to get downgraded for calls against the Raiders. So, particularly the judgment calls. False start is pretty obvious, but the judgment calls, and my fear is that they'll use this game and some of these calls to hurt us later in the season. So for those that are tuned into this show specifically for the officiating aspects of what's going on Sunday, don't be surprised if later on the season we're talking about some calls made by another crew that are darkly similar to some of the calls that we could log for what happens against us on Sunday with John Hussey's crew. So pay attention to that. You could and be careful, because next week we can say, oh yeah, there were some calls that we won the game. That's not the point here. The point is we want all the calls so that we can understand the context with which those were calls and whether or not they were valid calls or not, regardless of whether we win or lose, specifically if we win, more so if we lose. But what I think happens is that we're gonna say, oh, the tendency, right, guys, is to brush off the marginal calls when we win because we won. Well, we don't brush off the marginal calls when we lose.
Right.
And so what happens is that we forget to pay attention to the calls against us when we win. And I think that's what happens. I think there will be some calls that we should be talking about next week, even though we will win, because they will come back later in the season. And I promise you, in weeks 12, 13, 14, something like that, or God forbid in a wild card game, we're going to go, remember our week 7 show when we talked about this crap, because this is the crew that's going to stick it to us so much, in a large effect on Sunday, but later on as the NFL logs some of these calls. So pay attention to what flags are thrown on Sunday. That said, what do you guys like in this game? I like the Raiders at home. It doesn't really have anything to do with coming off the bye, because I know all the stats coming off the bye, but this is Houston. This is a Houston team, guys. It's last in the NFL in scoring, which means we're probably going to give up 30 points. I really don't think we will. I think our defense is better than that. And I don't think they're ready for Crosby. And I think Chandler shows up this week just because, Houston's offensive line is decent, but they're just not scoring enough points. That said, I have 2 questions. What's your take on this game, and what have we heard or not heard about Devontae Adams?
I don't think Devontae is going to suffer any judgments until this whole legal matter plays out. So I think we're going to have him for a while. What my feeling is that they will wait until late in the season when these games are the utmost important, and then pull the old banana peel on us. As far as the Houston game is concerned, yeah, we should win that hands down, but it is soul searching time because we can't keep giving games away in the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
Right. And
and I did see the
there's a
stat,
comment in
where
the chat.
where we're 0-6
Yeah, with Hussey,
when John Hussey is there. That's a disturbing stat.
that's
I
facts,
hope that
man.
we can put a 1 in front of that
In
so we
front
can
of
get
that.
our first win with Hussey's crew. I still think it's going to be a close game. I think that if the Raiders, and I don't know why I have to say this, but if the Raiders play to their potential, despite the defense that Lovey will put up against us, okay, I think that the Raiders should win. I think it would normally be comfortably win, but because of the Hussey stat, and the fact is that Lovey's D just for some reason is better than and he's going to have them jacked for against us. Remember, they're coming off a bye as well, so they are just as
Yeah.
rested as we are.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not no advantage there. I'll take the Raiders in a tight game against the Texans.
Yeah, I'm calling it 26-20, and I'm trying to get to all the chats because some really good stuff in there.
Yeah.
One of them was turnovers will be the difference. Very well could be. Um, you combine that with some of the potential for marginal calls, and that could be problematic. Um, then there was the what was the other one that I saw in there? Um, there was comments about the Texans, them being better than they look, so to speak, wolf in sheep's clothing. That's true to a point, but this Raiders team is better than we look as well, and we're better at 1-4 than the Texans are in whatever stats you want to put on the Texans. And I know that stats are important, and I respect the stats that were thrown in here about the Titans. I don't know exactly where the comment was, but I did read it. And what the Texans have been able to do or not do. But there's also a Texans team that couldn't go into Chicago and beat the Bears. So this is a game the Raiders should be able to handle. That said, there was another comment in there that the Raiders should put this game away by halftime so that the refs don't have a chance to do these BS phantom calls. And you're absolutely right. We need a 21-0 lead going into halftime, and then we need to add on another 2 more.
Another 2 scores.
So maybe 20. If it's 21-0 at halftime, we're probably going to win 27 or 31, 30 something to 6 or 8. I don't know, but my fear is that if there are phantom calls, then the Texans are probably going to get some points. But I'd like 30-13. I think it'll be 26-20, but I'd like 30-13. Ref, what has been your take, the NFL versus the Raiders? Well, we've covered that a lot on this show, and the reality is that while there's still an attitude, if you will, towards the Raiders and trying to, if you will, hurt them, they've shifted the focus on that. And what I mean by that is, in the old days, the officials just used to look for whatever they could find, and they just took whatever they wanted to take, and no one was able to do anything about it. And then the older officials trained the newer officials on how to do that, basically how to job the Raiders at critical times during the games. Well, education, training, and attrition took care of a lot of that. So how the NFL combated we can't hand down the philosophy of how to screw the Raiders was they said, well, if you make calls against the Raiders that hurt the Raiders, you won't get downgraded. Official isn't afraid to get downgraded. He's going to throw all the flags he needs to, and the NFL is basically like, well, we'll use those as training points throughout the rest of the year. So basically, the refs know that if they're going to screw up calls, do it against the Raiders, and it's, if you will, New York, no harm, no foul. And what's their incentive? They don't have to train anybody anymore because everybody's on the same playing field, right? Because when you look at it, when you think about it, if you had a ref like Walt Coleman who was adamant about his philosophy against the Raiders, even as much as he might want to pass that down to somebody else, you can only instill so much into someone else because someone else thinks their own way, has their own philosophy, um, factors in different things. So as much as you'd like to use communism, if you will, as a way to pass things down, that this is how we're going to. And for years they did that, and they did it out of fear, because if you didn't do it that way, you didn't officiate. Well, once they started getting younger officials and female officials in there, they realized they couldn't just use, I'm going to twist your arm and that's the way it's going to be, because people were like, well, then we're not going to officiate. And then the NFL is like, oh, geez, shit, maybe we're going to run out of officials. Maybe we should change the way we're going to do it. So philosophically, their way around that was, instead of coercion and threats and intimidation, they said, oh, you get a free pass. You want to throw a flag? Go ahead. We'll talk about it on Tuesday and everything will be fine. Throw that against the Bengals and you're going to miss a playoff game. So that's it in a nutshell. That's what my take on the NFL and the Raiders is. Lovey has a good D. That's true. But we might get slapped around against Houston. Yeah, if we don't block somebody, we absolutely will. But if we can open up the holes in the running game, then I think that it could be a long day for Houston. But that could be a key for us guys, right? To run the ball, run the clock, even though it's a home game, right?
Shorten it up, shorten the game.
Yep.
And the thing is, as we were saying on the show earlier, I still say we got to continue to run the ball when we've been better, when we've looked best. We've been running successfully with Jacobs. And then when they start sucking up for Jacobs, that's when we have those passes to Adams, which were successful,
Right.
against Kansas City. Those long passes basically came out of nowhere. And,
Right.
Adams is getting there. Waller still, somebody put him on a milk carton. And hopefully, Renfro, I think Renfro was still playing in a fog. I really think that he was not ready to come back when he came back against Kansas City, which might have done something in that very last play where he ran into Adams. And again, I'm glad somebody told me that he ran into Adams, because I thought it was purely on the defenses, and I told the people around me, I said, you guys got away with one, because that should have been pass interference. Didn't realize it was Renfro that ran into Adams.
Right.
So again,
Right. Yeah, but the
Renfro's
TV angle is
better.
very hard to see on that. Yeah.
But if Renfro gets back to being what he is, getting back to normalcy, that'll be a good thing. I really think Waller is checked out. I want to see Foster Moreau come back at this point.
Yeah, I do too.
Much more.
Yeah.
And I want to see Waller figure it out. And Horsted not a bad tight end.
But and how is it that Kelsey's tearing up the AFC West and we can't our tight end is
good
like
question.
you said on a milk carton?
Good question.
Here's the one stat, I think it was from Sharif. Houston lost 2 games by 1 possession and then has the 1 tie. This can be the difference in cars, still susceptible to that. That's true. But I'm hoping that on Sunday for this week, that's not the case. If we can avoid that, among other things, I think we get the win. But again, I think we'll get the win. I think we'll be talking about a Raiders win. Well, even if it's a blowout or not, I don't know, but I don't think it will be. But I still think we might be talking about some officiating, even in context of a win, and why that's important. Let's see, where are we? Seattle going to go into LA to take on the Chargers. This is a game we'd really like Seattle to win. They could win this. I think they might, guys. Seattle's putting up a lot of points. They're not playing very much defense. But if they can score often, I'm just not sure the Chargers are going to have enough offense. I mean, I know that Denver's defense is pretty good, right? But this is a Charger team that only got 19 points. This is a Seattle team is number 7 in the NFL with scoring. Where are the Chargers? Well, the Chargers are 9th at 141 versus 146. So on paper, I guess it looks close, but I don't know. I think the Seahawks have a better than decent chance of beating the Chargers. What do you guys think?
They definitely have a chance because Geno is playing lights out right now. They've got a rookie running back, I think, out of Michigan State, if I'm not mistaken. I remember him from the combine. This cat has got his chance to play last week, and he's just tearing it up. So if they can have some ball control and Geno can score just enough and pressure, if the defense can pressure Herbert, I could see Seattle coming out here with a victory, which I'm pulling for in this one.
Well, with the way things are shaping up, guys, we could get the win against Houston. Kansas City could get beat on the road in San Francisco. We'll talk about that one in a minute. Denver could get beat at home against the New York Jets. It could be a good week for us, so to speak. That said, Kansas City is going to go in San Francisco, take on the 49ers. This is a game the Chiefs should win on the road, but the 49ers aren't going away. I know they lost in Atlanta. It's in a game that they really shouldn't have lost. But they had the 2 games on the road. I think they were in Carolina or something, and then they had to go to Atlanta. So they're probably glad to be home. They should be fired up to see how well they match up against the Chiefs team. But I think regardless, this could be a fun one to watch, you guys. It could be high scoring.
I think it will be definitely fun to watch from the scoring standpoint. But I'm always watching that both defenses, and I think Bosa will give Mahomes a run for his money. I see Debo taking over on the offense, and we don't forget they have a good tight end in Kittle, so they can put up points with KC.
Yeah,
Okay.
I definitely think that I think the last time that San Francisco played Kansas City, they were one Garoppolo pass away from winning in a game that I believe that you were at there, shipmate, were you not? Or is that the one before that?
Well, it was a Super Bowl. I wasn't at that one, but I was at a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
party.
okay. Yeah, you were in the fake Pirates one at home. I apologize. But I think that they've been spoiling for a rematch since then. And I think that they're gonna come out. And again, maybe a little bit of wishful thinking, but I like the Niners in this game. I really do.
I'm taking them at home.
Yeah, it says if the refs are against them, why are there no lawsuits? Well, because you can't prove it. Somebody said that it's collusion, but you can't prove it. Just because I said it doesn't make it true. Refs are protected by the union. That's nothing that can be done with the refs. That's true too. But again, that's my take.
That's why we call them the goon squads too.
Well, yeah, and anybody that you ask outside of this show is going to be, oh no, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's fine if they want to say that. But that said, I'm entitled to my opinion, even if it's wrong. You can decide if it's wrong or not. Although we did have pretty extensive discussion about last year's blowjob game in Cincinnati. I think we were pretty clear on that. So collusion only exists when the Raiders are involved. Not really. You forget about the Cheatriots in New England. I mean, the whole thing's rigged, guys. I mean, it's not just the Raiders. It's not just the Raiders. It's not just the refs. Not just the refs against the Raiders. It's entertainment. There are no rules except for whatever rules they want to apply at that moment. So there you go. Pittsburgh going to go into Miami, take on the. Go ahead, V.
No, I was just reading a comment. The cameras and tapes prove it. Yeah, the cameras don't lie, but they can explain the hell out of it to us. But our eyes and the cameras see the real deal. So
Yeah. So and the NFL won't ever show you the grading that the officials get. So who's to say if I'm right or they're right or I'm wrong or they're wrong? Again, it's my opinion. And I'll go on the record as saying it's my opinion that they don't get downgraded for bad calls against the Raiders. There could be other reasons, but how else do you explain that? Because there are officials that have had bad calls against the Raiders and still get playoff games. There's been officials who've had bad calls against other teams and didn't get the playoffs. How do you figure that? Because you didn't get downgraded for the. I mean, I'm just saying draw your own conclusion, but I'm just trying to do the Kentucky math.
No punishment for the crime.
Yeah, exactly. Pittsburgh going to go into Miami and take on the Dolphins. This is a game I'd like to see Pittsburgh win. I think fundamentally they could win it, but they're not scoring a point. I think a Dolphins team that is a little ticked off after starting out pretty good and then blowing a couple because Tua got dinged up and then they had the short week and all that stuff. So um, I just think that Miami's probably going to get it done. They didn't get it done last week at home against Minnesota. Minnesota's a better football team, but I think the Dolphins will have more pieces in place this week. And if they're at 75 or 80% firepower from what they have been, that's enough to, if it wasn't enough to beat Minnesota last week, it's probably enough to beat the Steelers this week. What do you think?
I'm taking Miami at home. Tua is supposed to be back. Just saw a little article on that earlier today. He's supposed to play. So, that team's going to be super jacked up. And he has some weapons to attack, Pittsburgh's back end there.
Yeah, I was gonna say I saw it as well. Tua is lined up to play this week, and if he plays, then I'll take Miami.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's probably going to be enough for them to beat the Steelers. Officials get upgraded to playoff games for bad regular season calls against the Raiders.
No, that's not true because then they would have everybody would make the playoff games.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand the question. Ed says football lost integrity once the NFL became entertainment conglomerate. As fans, I don't think we would argue that. Officials get upgraded to playoff games for bad.
Basically, I'm saying everybody
No.
calls badly against the Raiders. They would have too many people vying for all of those positions, so that can't always be true.
Right. Yeah, you don't get upgraded to playoff game because you threw flags against the Raiders. You don't get downgraded for calls against the Raiders because they want to use those for training purposes. Officials get never mind. Then Miami wins. Since 2000, NFL has become a joke in every aspect. Well, that very well could be, which might bring us to why we're still talking about it. But anyway. The Monday night game, Chicago are going to go into New England and play the Bears. Really is interesting how this played out. The Patriots had to go 3-3 or whatever to get to this point. They had to, and the Bears had to do what they did to get to this point. But we talked to Coach B earlier.
I stand
but I'd
by
like
what
to.
I said.
Yeah, I figured you would.
I
But you get to
I'm going back to nap.
you get
Don't
to
bother
well.
me.
Okay, but you're gonna get to beat George House's record on Monday night. Doesn't that sound pretty good to you, Coach?
I said it's already in the bag. Okay, it's in the bag.
Okay, you can
It's
move
done.
on to you can
Yeah,
move on
move on to
Cincinnati.
whoever the hell we play the next week because it's in the
Well,
bag. Okay,
you
and
don't you
I
don't know.
told you stop disturbing me from my nap. I told you that last week.
Well, yeah, but I did. You probably would have caught up on your sleep after last week.
No, we partied
So
our ass off when Kraft had his wedding. Did you not see the
oh,
pictures?
that's
And
well.
by the way, he who shall not be named went without his Skeletor wife. That guy got ripped.
I'm sure he
Okay,
probably
that
did.
guy
And
got ripped.
okay, so you're going to beat the Bears and move on to the New York Jets. Is that what you're saying?
If that's the next team, because then the New York Jets is another team that is one of my former teams. So I'm going to go get the record, and then I'm going to add to the record after that by beating.
Yeah, you're going to beat the Jets. Yeah, it was your former team for like what, a minute?
No,
or
15.
a minute and a half, 2 days. why does the refs have crews? Why not mix the refs up to keep away bias? My passion for football died in the 90s. Yeah. I can't tell you when mine did. But I could tell you, but well, the reason why they have crews is because they're trying, and I'm not sure it works as well as they think it does, but they're trying to maintain consistency. And the way you can't one thought for how you can maintain consistency is by having the same group work together for the entire season. I know from having worked crews and from having worked split crews that there is an advantage to working with the same folks every week. You get used to their uh, their um, their thought processes. You get used to who's covering what, hands, feet, whatever. The referee gets a comfort level that his crew or the members of his crew are working well enough together to get calls right. So there's an advantage to there. And when you get to the playoffs, then it they are mixed crews. So I've always wondered why, if you can have your standard crews during the season, and that's for consistency, all of a sudden in the playoffs you get mixed crews, and that's good. So the point being is that in the playoffs you're supposed to be having the better graded officials all working together. That makes sense. I think if you have a crew that's worked together and the side judge has continued to not score well in his grading, do you want that guy on a playoff game? Maybe not. That said, if you do a mixed crew and the referee has, four of the seven guys that are new for that week, for that one game, is that good because they haven't really worked together? The theory is that by that point they're all good enough that they can work together for the one week and get it right. So far, it's not worked out. It's worked out pretty good. Going forward, I don't know. But that's an ongoing question about how they do crews and why they do crews. Hopefully, I answered that question. They break a finger out. They break a finger out 4 weeks.
Good one.
Uh,
Different eras,
yeah.
different mindsets.
Yep. Different philosophies, different speculations, different cheating scandals, different everything. So, anyway, it is what it is. All right, everybody. I think we pretty well put the lid on week 6 and got you ready for week 7. Thanks, everybody, for the chat. Hopefully, you folks that want a t shirt sent their information over, and we'll get those sent out to you. And that said, yeah, and a size. That said, we will be back next week for our week 8 show and put the lid on week 7. Hopefully, we're talking about, and I think we will, Raiders win. Hopefully, we're not talking too much about the officiating for that game. Although there might be some other game that was impacted. And if there was and it needs to be covered, we'll do that here. So let's go around real quick. Get your final thoughts on week 6 or week 7. Cap, what's on your mind this week?
Looking forward to getting back out to a game. It was kind of weird, being home last week, because I've gotten all the games and it's like, wow, what do I do? But it'll be good. V, are you coming out as well, or?
I'll be there.
Okay, good. Then it'll be good to see family. Hopefully I'll have a chance to see V and anybody else. And let's get a much needed win. That's all I can say. Let's get the win and let it roll. Let it snowball. Let it be, the start of something good. Because like I saw the stat and I can't remember where it was from. And somebody told me I was wrong, but it said that the Raiders were favored in the rest of their games until the last game.
Well, let's see.
I think the next 5.
This week we have Houston. Then we go to New Orleans.
But I thought I saw that there was a better than 50% chance on all the rest of the games.
Well, we've got Houston. We got Houston. Then we're at New Orleans. We're at Jacksonville. We got Indianapolis, at Denver, at Seattle, LA Chargers, at LA Rams, New England, Pittsburgh, San Francisco, Kansas City. So I'd say it's probably 60-40. I think we beat Houston. I think we could beat the Saints if we wanted to. Jacksonville's probably split. Indianapolis we can beat if they don't have Taylor. We know we can beat Denver. I don't know about going to Seattle. I don't know about how the Rams are going to be by week 14. We got New England at home, but New England's defense is pretty good. We possibly could beat the Steelers. Then with San Francisco, Kansas City, I don't know. If Kansas City, that last game, if they don't need to play anybody because they've already in the playoffs or got the division, or I mean, I don't know how
Could
much
be.
incentive they would necessarily have to win it. I can see a scenario where Kansas City is probably in it, the number 2 seed, no matter what, but we have to win to get in. Then they're going to show up to keep us out of the
Right. To
playoffs.
keep us out.
If there's some other scenario, we might be able to beat the Chiefs. I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say
We could end up with the
it,
same scenario as San Francisco, where San Francisco needs to win to get in, and I think we're in trouble maybe against the 49ers. So it's a little bit of a crapshoot, I think, but I'd call it 60-40. Maybe I think we're better than 70-30 that we'd win, but I think it's
I'll have
maybe
to
closer
pull.
to
I'll have to
60-40.
pull the meme, but it had the percentage favored by this one person, and it had this over 50% favored to win against every team up until the last game.
The KC
Okay.
Up
game.
until the last game,
Yeah.
against
Well,
KC,
I
which
wouldn't
was
be.
like a 37%.
I agree with you that if that's going to happen, then a blowout win against Houston and a couple road wins against the Saints and the Jaguars would go a long way towards making that a reality. Yeah. Says ref, you and others have a big voice that needs to be heard. It could change the history of the NFL. I'm really not interested. Well, maybe, and I appreciate that comment. Mostly, I appreciate the respect. Keep in mind that those are my opinions. But I do have the experience, and I do clinics to teach people about what's going on with regards to officiating. So that's what I like to do. I'm really not interested in throwing the officials under the bus, but when they blow it up, then they need to be called on it. And when it impacts what I think um, the integrity of the game, I think they need to be called on it.
Hey,
Will they
God,
change
and again
anything?
for Ed Winchell, Sharisa, I just quoted the friggin' stat. My God, guys, take an effing chill pill, both of you. Okay, that's about as close to cussing as I'm going to get on this show. I just did the stat. That's all.
Well, Ed says he totally disagree on that. Oh, he talking about the whether we win or lose out. Yeah. Well,
Yeah. And
yeah.
then Streif said, "Well, yeah, all we got to do is win out, and the Chiefs and Chargers, all they have to do is lose out."
Well,
I'm just
yeah,
saying
but
what the stats said.
well, yeah, we can all speculate. They have to play the games, and so that's why we do this show every week so we can keep track of what's going on. But we'll see what happens.
Definitely.
But it's good. I mean, everybody's passionate about whatever there's on their mind,
We
and
love
this is
it.
a fan-based show, and that's why we're doing it. But
And
it's
may I
all good.
mention one other thing, and I'm sorry, V, because I just thought of it. I don't remember what the guy's name is, but he is the biggest honk for the Kansas City Chiefs that goes, okay? And even he said that the Raiders, don't sleep on the Raiders because they are not a 1-4 team. And this is a guy that cannot stand the Raiders, and that Kansas City Chiefs are the greatest thing in the world, and Andy Reid is God, and Patrick Mahomes dates everybody's girlfriend, and yada yada yada. Whatever the thing is, this is a Kansas City honk, and even he said, "Don't sleep on the Raiders." I'm just saying.
Yeah. And one last note too, I think it was Jack. We need to speak out. We do on this show as much as we can.
That's what it's. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so much. There's only so much noise you can make before you start getting shouted down. So I try to just be constructive, and we try to do it to train folks, give them just some general understanding of how things operate. And education is how we get better at all the things we're going to do. So,
Definitely.
all right. That said, let's get the heck out of here. And V, what's on your mind this week?
Hey, just looking forward to seeing these guys come off the bye and not fall into that whole trap that we play like crap following a bye. Stack some victories, get an identity. But this team still does not have an identity yet. That's what they need to work on the rest of this season.
Sounds good. All right, everybody. Thanks for your participation in this week's show. We'll be back next week for week 8, and we're about the halfway point. We didn't put anybody on the clock this week. We got to put somebody on the clock real quick. V, who did we say we're going to put on the clock?
We were talking Chicago.
Chicago. Hang on. Should we put Chicago on the clock?
All by me. And yeah, I got rid of all the nasty hoes who just botted my channel.
Thanks. Chicago and Denver. We're putting on the clock.
No argument.
Yeah. Because next week in our week 8 show, I'm going to be counting down to some people that need to be on the clock or timed out on YouTube, one of the two. Yeah, the Bears got a Timex watch. Indeed, they did, along with a few other people. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week. Take care. Stay safe. Enjoy the games. Bye.
Yeah! You don't piss me off either!
Right on cue. I love it.
Way to go, Kid.